Founder Dr. Neil Clark Warren, we've created a new solution, EH Plus. EH Plus combines the personal attention of a matchmaker with eHarmony's extensive pool of great singles. EH Plus gives you hand-selected matches and freedom from being online. Get started today. Call 855-930-LOVE. That's 855-930-LOVE.
This is John Greenhut, and if your teeth are stained from coffee, tea, or smoking, Power Swabs is the answer. In 5 minutes, you'll see 2 shades whiter teeth, and in 7 days, 6 shades. Even better, there's no messy strips or trays that you'll have to leave in your mouth for an hour. Just swab your teeth for 5 minutes, and you're done. To try Power Swabs, call 1-800-679-0969. Your bright white smile will have your friends talking about how great you look. Try it risk-free. 1-800-679-0969. That's 1-800-679-0969.
Listen to KCAA Loma Linda for less confrontation and more information.
Good afternoon. It's a couple minutes after the hour. I'm Di Rice with the latest in local news on KCAA 1050 AM. Last night, a man jumped from an overpass onto the 210 in San Bernardino, just east of the 215 interchange. The man hit a vehicle, and his presumably dead body remained in traffic lanes, backing up traffic for about an hour as far back as E Street. CHP has no further details of the incident at this time. And a 20-year-old victim was robbed Tuesday night after agreeing to buy a phone advertised on Craigslist. The victim and the subject agreed to meet in the area of Cypress and Filbert in Fontana. While waiting in his vehicle, the victim was approached by a suspect on foot who stated he would go get the phone. The suspect walked over to a car and returned with a black semi-automatic handgun. The suspect pointed the gun at the victim, at which time another suspect came up from behind and placed his hand over his mouth, taking him to the ground. The two suspects retrieved money from the victim's vehicle, then both fled on foot. The Fontana Police Department encourages residents to use parking lots during the day to prevent Craigslist-related crimes from occurring. Inland Empire weather, we are going to be showery and cloudy once again tomorrow with highs only near 62, overnight lows down around 52. Currently it's about 58 here in San Bernardino. That's the latest in local news on KCAA. This report has been brought to you by the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. The drought is serious, but everything you do to save water really adds up. Visit BeWaterWise.com to learn how you can save water. From the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California.
KCAA, where every day is a great day. KCAA Loma Linda.
Welcome to Smart Health Talk with your host, Elaine McFadden.
Take a walk on the wild side, where the birds and the bees survive.
Talk radio show right here on KCAA 1050 AM. And this, of course, is the station that leaves no listener behind, and that's because we bring you the news here. We bring you the news that's going to affect your family, your health, how good you feel. And these are all really important things, very, very important. And what you'll find if you listen to Smart Health Talk, you're going to be going, wait a minute. I never heard that before. How come no one ever told me that before? And that's because you won't probably hear a lot about what we talk about here on Smart Health Talk on your normal media channels, which are controlled by about 6 corporations. And we're not part of that. We're actually very independent, and that is why we have a lot more freedom in the kind of subjects that we talk about here. We have no alliances to big corporations and any desire to help protect them, and some of the lies that have been told the American people, of which that was a big subject that we talked about last week on our show when we had our guest from the Public Employees for Environmental Responsibility group, Jeff, the director over there, he was giving us some really good inside information on the kind of things that are going on over at the USDA, which pretty shocking stuff. And if you weren't here for last week's show and you're wondering, hey, should I be trusting all of the things that these big chemical companies and pesticide companies and GMO companies are telling me, that all of the stuff that is in my food is safe? Well, we would like to believe that our government is there representing the people, but unfortunately, we've had an infiltration. Yes, we've had an infiltration of some of our top people at our government agencies like the FDA, the USDA, and because of that, these people that have previously worked for companies like Monsanto tend to make decisions in favor of those companies and not necessarily the American people. And so lucky for us that we have incredible organizations like the peer group that is actually making it easier for the truth to get out, the truth on the kind of decisions that are being made, the kind of practices that are being done by our government, that we may not know about, that may be hidden. And maybe the only people that know are people directly related to it. And whistleblowers that are not, are actually people looking out for other people. Some may look at them in different ways, but if you think about it, if you were doing a job, and as part of that job, you were forced into doing something that you knew was hurting other people. Think how torn you would be. And you knew this was having a direct impact on other people's health. It could be impacting children, making them sick. And you've been sucked into being a part of this, which is something you would never do on your own, as like part of your job. Very upsetting. Hard to sleep at night. What are you going to do about it? You have to support your family. You're afraid to lose your job. Well, that's what organization like the peer group, that's the kind of people that they help. The people that want to do the right thing, that want to tell the truth of what's going on. They don't want to be a part of that any longer. They don't necessarily want to hurt the people that are doing it. They just want it to stop. So the peer group is someone that they would turn to. And last week we were talking about the USDA and the type of decisions that and information that is being supplied as the review process for these pesticides and GMOs and other chemicals that are used in our food. And the scientists are giving the stamp of approval that all this stuff is A-OK, healthy for us, no problem, and they just don't go over these limits, you're okay. And is this all really the truth? Are we getting the whole truth here? Well, the peer group says no, based on information that they have received. And so they said we're going to sue the USDA for not allowing scientists to give us full disclosure of what they are actually learning, the harmful effects of these different pesticides and chemicals. So there's a lot more going on even than just this. And we are lucky enough to have Kcaa Bennett. She is also from the peer group. She's from the New England branch of the peer group. And from everything I've learned about Kcaa, she kind of reminds me of myself in a way. And that's because she is a very passionate woman. She's very passionate about protecting the innocent, people that, are being harmed and don't even know it. And this is happening. Any of us in this country could be a victim of being exposed to pesticides without our permission, without our knowledge. And this is some harmful stuff. And so I want to, plus if you wanted to, I want to let you know, before I introduce Kcaa, that if you want to get any of these podcasts, the podcast we had from last week where we talked about the USDA, that's all on kcaaradio.com under 4 o'clock on Thursday, Smart Health Talk. 3.5 years of broadcaster there. We have all kinds of information, and then you can also go to our website. We're going to be putting all this up in a special section because there's actually a lot going on, which I'm looking forward to talking to Kyla about, because there's like other things going on that I think totally relate to the kind of things she does in her job that are happening, where everyday citizens are becoming victims. And so I just want to welcome Kyla to the show, and all of her passion and all of the great things that she does in her job to help protect people out there and also citizens. So welcome to Smart Health Talk, Kyla.
Thank you so much for having me, Elaine.
Thank you. Boy, that was a loud one there. Thank you for adjusting that. Why don't you, first of all, go ahead and just like introduce yourself. Tell us what your position is at Pure, and give us a little history, and tell us what the kind of projects that you're involved in right now.
Sure. My name is Kyla Bennett, and I am the director of New England Pure. So I deal with the 6 New England states, and my office is located between Boston, Massachusetts, and Providence, Rhode Island. So I deal with all of the issues that arise with public employees in those areas. And basically, as you described, Pure is a whistleblower group. We support and defend public employees who work in the environmental arena. And one of the big issues that we've been hit with, and this has been ongoing since early 2000s, but basically what we're seeing is the overuse and the misuse of pesticides, which are adversely impacting not only the viability of pollinators like honeybees, but also of people and wildlife in the area. And 2 of the cases that I was hoping we could talk about tonight were dealing with those personal mosquito misters that people have. They spray insecticide in your yard so you can have a pest-free yard. And also the death of the honeybees, which is of concern to the entire world.
Well, I was looking at, as you were talking, Kyle, I was looking at this map as far as like what you guys are looking at in your area as far as the amount of bee deaths, hive deaths that you are seeing. And this is just the rates that you're seeing now are unheard of. Is that true?
Yes, it's amazing. It's unprecedented. And what we're finding is that any hive that's within 2 miles of a spray, particularly of corn, the pesticide will actually drift, and the bees can actually fly about 2 miles, 1.5 to 2 miles, to look for flowers, and they bring the pesticide back to the hive, and it kills the entire hive. And it's devastating. So this map that you're referring to just shows since November of 2014, so only a few months really, we've had, and there's been more since this, but 11 hive collapses from pesticides sprayed on corn.
And so the thing is, like, you're just looking at this map and you're going, okay, we're looking at major hive death in this area, and we can see a direct relationship with the fact that this very area where we're seeing this happening is a place where we had significant pesticide spraying or herbicide spraying.
It's pesticide spraying, and it's more than just the correlation between the spraying and the hive death. What actually happens is that the apiary owners, the hive owners, will collect the dead bees. And if you see pictures of this, it's just devastating. It's astounding. We're talking about
just looking at all these
thousands of dead and dying bees. So they actually collect the bodies, and the state tests them and finds the high levels of pesticides. So we not only know for sure that these bees have been exposed to the pesticide, but we know what kind of pesticide they're being exposed to.
And, I just want to give a mini case study here because I want people to realize, this is far-reaching. We're talking, because so many people, I think that they just hear, spraying in fields, and they kind of distance themselves from it. They think, oh, I don't have that in my area. This isn't going to impact me. But like, first of all, how far can this drift travel?
It depends on how windy it is. And of course there are use restrictions, label restrictions on the pesticides, but they're very difficult to enforce. And weather, as you know, can change rapidly. So a day that doesn't start out windy may become windy suddenly, or there may be a gust. And these pesticides can actually drift several miles.
And the thing is, it's not just farmers spraying pesticides. We have so many, people buying pesticides at the home improvement store. And I know that, in Maryland, Montgomery County, Maryland, they're actually, trying to take this whole, area as far as people spraying pesticides all over the place. They're trying to take, that on and pass some laws, because these are like pesticides. You had to have special training and all that, but yet we're putting it in the hands of people. And when you're spraying it in your yard, you're actually poisoning your neighbor at the same time. And I went back and I started doing research on this pesticide, like the one that you had a reference to, that it was, what is it called? Lanet, something like that?
Yep.
Okay. And so you look at this, and it has this methanol in it. And we have had one of the experts on methanol on our show, because methanol is used in aspartame. It's a component of aspartame. And, that so many times they try to sell methanol as something that we find in nature, like in an apple, and it's perfectly safe. But they don't tell the whole story about methanol, and the bond that you find in many of these things is very weak, and it ends up in our bloodstream, passes through the blood-brain barrier, starts attacking the myelin sheath in our brain. And as I learned more about this pesticide also, it's shown that it actually blocks the breakdown of the acetylcholine in the synaptic gap when our brain is trying to send messages to our muscles to contract. And what are the dangers of blocking the breakdown of this acetylcholine?
It's incredible that it can cause all sorts of problems. All of these pesticides can. They can lead to difficulty breathing. They can exacerbate asthma, which a lot of children and adults have these days. It can cause skin rashes and blisters. They can actually disrupt the endocrine system and mimic female hormones and reduce sperm counts. I mean, it's an endless list. The other thing that's really, really interesting is that some of them actually lead to aggressive behavior in children and disruption of learning.
Yes,
So
I was looking at the mental.
these,
They mentioned that there was mental
Yes.
problems that are showing themselves after exposure. That you're seeing a change in behavior.
Right. And one of the problems is with some of these pesticides, and like you say, they're available to almost anybody. You can go and buy them in your Lowe's or your Home Depot. And not only that, and I don't know if they do this in California, but in much of the country, especially here in New England, if you are bothered by mosquitoes, you can call your state or county, and they will come spray for you. They'll come in those trucks and spray this pesticide. And, some of the mosquito diseases are very frightening. West Nile virus, which first appeared in the U.S. in 1999 and now is found in all the lower 48 states. There have been about 1,200 people who have died from West Nile virus since 1999. And here in this part of the country, we have Triple E, which has a very high mortality rate. About a third of the people who get it die. There have only been 270 U.S. cases so it's not as prevalent as West Nile virus, but people are afraid of mosquitoes. There are other things you can do, of course, but their immediate reaction is, live better through science, let's spray and kill them. But the problem is that the spray itself can lead to problems that are much worse than the mosquitoes bring themselves.
And well, yeah, and I was like looking at some of the things that happen, when you choose like this method where you're ruining soil fertility, and you're killing the good things as well. So
yes.
you're ruining the balance or the potential to not even have to deal with these things. And I know when you mentioned mosquitoes, as a public health person, the first thing that comes to my mind is that you eliminate the places where they can breed.
Absolutely.
And I know that that's like a big thing that you can do. And I wanted to kind of go back for a second on these pesticides when you were going down the list of the different types of reactions that a human body can have when exposed to them. And, it was like, these things that there's so many different ways that it can enter our body. That's one of the scary things with these pesticides as well, because if it can get in through your skin,
yep,
through your lungs, you can ingest it. So there's lots of different ways that these pesticides are entering our body. Now, these, you said that you were concerned about these mosquito repellent chemicals as well. What are your concerns about those?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, you raised a really good point when you said that, people think that if something is natural, quote unquote, then it's okay, it's benign, it's not going to hurt you. And one of the ways that these companies, these chemical companies, will sell things like the mosquito misters is they say, we use an all-natural pesticide. It doesn't harm you. It won't harm your pets or your kids. And basically what they are is they're synthetic chrysanthemum. It's a pyrethroid. But the actual chemical, whether it's natural or synthetic, can indeed hurt you. It can lead to all of these side effects. Just because something comes from nature doesn't mean that it is benign or harmless. And look at the list of poisonous plants that you touch and you get rashes, or you eat and you can die. Anything can be poisonous. And just because it's grown in nature doesn't mean it's safe. And that's how they market this to people. And all over the country, Texas, Florida, New England, California, they sell these mosquito misters. They're names like, all these companies like Mr. Mosquito and Mosquito Squad. And they actually put these systems, they bury them in people's yards with this big tank of pesticides. And these nozzles spray out pesticides on a regular basis to keep their yard free of insects.
Really? I that was a new one for me. I didn't know that they were selling those kind of products.
They're everywhere.
That's freaky.
They're everywhere. And even the American Mosquito Control Association, which is it's a not a governmental agency. It's a company or a conglomeration of companies that talking about mosquito control and trying to get the best thing out there. They think that these misting systems are a huge problem, and they lead to unnecessary insecticide use because they're set on this timer, and people, literally tens of thousands of these machines are out there installed in people's yards. There's no evidence that they're efficient, that they actually do reduce mosquitoes. They kill non-target insects like pollinators and bees. They promote insecticide resistance in some of the mosquitoes so that they develop a resistance to these insecticides, and then it doesn't kill them, and you need to get a stronger insecticide to kill them.
Wow,
increases
I
risk
did
of
not know this,
exposure to
Kyla.
people.
This is like so upsetting that there are these people. I mean, that and like, flea collars that are putting pesticides right on the skin of your animal, And the thing
Yep.
is, that I've talked to vets that tell me that, these salesmen come in and they're just like, push this stuff, push this stuff, push this stuff on the customer, And so even though it's pure pesticide, we're just like introducing this pure toxic pesticide in so many different ways into our life. Now, I have a really important question I'd like to ask you since we're on the subject of these mosquitoes. Well, there's a couple of areas there that are somewhat disturbing that are happening. One thing I'd like to confirm, since you're the expert on this, is I heard that these mosquito coils, together with the chemicals in DEET, which is something you'll spray on your skin as a mosquito and bug repellent, that when you mix those two chemicals together, the chemical that's found in the coil together with the chemical that's in DEET, that it actually combines to form a super toxic chemical.
I had not heard that, Elaine, but I guess I wouldn't be surprised because so many of these chemicals have synergistic effects, and when you add two things together, you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, in fact, with some of these sprays that they use for mosquitoes, they actually put in another chemical which is even more toxic than the pesticide itself.
Is that the inert?
They form something absolutely awful. So, although I had not heard that, I would not be surprised. And DEET, by the way, is very, very toxic to humans and animals.
It is?
Oh, yes.
Oh, I'm so glad I asked you that.
If you look on the Center for Disease Control's website under mosquito issues, one of the things they suggest that you use that is not DEET related, I mean, if you look at the warning label of DEET, you can't put it on small children, keep it away from your eyes. If you have a reaction, call this number immediately. Don't use it if you're pregnant or nursing. There's all sorts of warnings on the label, but CDC does recommend lemon eucalyptus oil, which is, there's actually a brand that's sold. You can buy it on Amazon or in Target, in stores. But it's lemon eucalyptus. It's all natural. You have to apply it more often, more frequently than the DEET, but it's just as effective.
The other, another product that I talked to a man that is a dealer of it, who he said his customers have had pretty good success, is cedar oil.
Yes, I've heard that cedar oil is good, but part of the problem, and when you were giving your introduction, you mentioned the infiltration of chemical company people into the federal government and levels of government that are making decisions on things like these pesticides. Part of the other problem is that our government does not have the resources that these big chemical companies have. Obviously, we don't have the same money that they have. And oftentimes you'll see that the studies done on the efficacy of these chemicals and the harm, the risk assessments, are done by the chemical companies simply because the government doesn't have the time, the money, the resources to do these studies themselves.
We'll trust what you say. No problem. Good enough.
Right, exactly.
It's like there's nothing else we can do. We don't have money to check on it anyway, so we'll just take what you said as true.
Right, and if you look at if you Googled, bee deaths with pesticides, you'll find all of these references to these studies done by the biggest chemical company out there that makes these pesticides that are killing the bees, and they say, "Oh, it's not a problem. Really, it's not us that's causing the deaths." Well, of course they're going to say that. They're paid to say that.
Well, I'd like to give two examples. First of all, just in the news, this just came out yesterday, that Roslyn Park, I'm not exactly sure where Roslyn Park is. I wasn't able to figure out what state that was. But anyway, this could be USA Park, at any city in the country. And what happened was they went out there and they were spraying the 2,4-D, which is a new pesticide that's been approved, everyone. Why don't you explain, Kyla, what the 2,4-D is?
I actually don't know what 2,4-D is.
It used to be Agent Orange, but now it's...
Oh, was it? They renamed it?
Yeah. Now it's now I'm trying to remember the name of the actual brand. But bottom line is, everyone, it doesn't really matter what the newest name is that they're calling it. It's it started off as Ancient Orange. And now it's, what is the name of that? I keep thinking Decumba, something like that. But anyway, no, shoot, that's making me mad. I can't remember it. But anyway, this new pesticide, which was Ancient Orange, it was just recently approved, and people were speaking out in outrage that this would ever be approved, and the only reason they approved it is because the glyphosate is not working anymore. And Duo Enlist, that's a name. It's just like some weird friggin' name. That's why it was like hard to me to remember. Duo Enlist. Oh, that's the Ancient Orange in disguise. Okay, well, that's the new name of it, and they are now allowed to use this on food or whatever, wherever the heck they want, apparently. And so this park, just any neighborhood park, these people, they stepped outside at 7:30 in the morning and they could smell the pesticide. And
this is the case where they all got sick.
Yes, all kinds of people got sick, and I mean, really sick. And nausea, headaches, just, children, all different kinds of people. And the thing is, the city came and sprayed this Ancient Orange in their park, right in their neighborhood. Didn't warn anyone, anything. 7:30 in the morning, you got joggers out in the park. You got kids walking to school. I'm just thinking of all the people that are out there. And this just reminds me, I mean, I tried to contact one of the big local hospitals here, Loma Linda Hospital, which is a Seventh-day Adventist hospital. And I actually just read that another Adventist hospital actually stopped using pesticides because of some regulations that were passed by the city, which shows these are actually effective, everyone. When you start, going down to your city council and saying, hey, we don't want to use pesticides in our city. We don't want them sprayed in our park and by the hospital and by the school, which is happening all over. They were testing like the air, just in people's yards, and it's like off the chart with pesticides.
Right, and it's crazy because if 2,4-D is one of the ingredients that was in Agent Orange, then it's an herbicide, not a pesticide. So there's not even a health risk for whatever plant it is they're trying to kill. The thing that people always say is, well, we have to spray because we've got Triple E, or we've got West Nile virus, or we've got this mosquito-borne illness, or this tick-borne illness. So we have to use this pesticide because people are dying or people are getting very ill. But if you're talking about an herbicide which kills plants, then why do you even need to? There are so many other alternatives besides using something that toxic.
Oh, you know what they were trying to kill, Kyla? The dandelion, that evil, evil dandelion.
You're kidding.
No, that was the purpose, was to kill the dandelions that were growing in the park. And this is what I can't understand. I actually posted a picture of a dandelion. I'm like public enemy number one, this is the whole thing. These companies have turned the dandelion into like some sort of evil plant, when actually, isn't it beneficial, like to butterflies and other pollinators?
Yes. Insects feed on the flowers. I think they're kind of pretty.
They're little yellow flowers.
The leaves. There's There's nothing wrong
You can
with them.
Hey, you can make wine out of it, Kyla.
Right. If you can make wine out of it, how bad can it be?
I know. There we go. You can make tea out of it. You can put it in salads. I mean, the butterflies love it. The bees love it. But yet, all these chemical companies have turned it into like some evil thing that like
the reliance on chemicals that we have as a society is frightening. And I don't know if you saw recently, there was a study done in, I think it was Sweden, where they took this family who never ate organic vegetables or fruits because they couldn't afford it, they said. And they looked at the pesticide levels in their urine and had them eat only organic food for 2 weeks. And by the end of just 2 weeks, the entire family, from the toddler through the teenage daughter and the parents, their pesticide levels in their urine basically disappeared after only 2 weeks. And we know some of the impacts of what these pesticides do to people, but we don't know all of them. And we certainly don't know the synergistic effects, as you pointed out, between several different pesticides or even a pesticide and another chemical. Is this related to our high cancer rates, to obesity, to our behavioral issues, ADHD, autism? We don't know. But why on earth would we indiscriminately use these chemicals when we don't know what they're doing to us?
Well, and the thing is, they did just come out with a study, the World Health Organization. They did a study, and they published it in Lancet, and they said there's they said glyphosate is probably carcinogenic to humans, that it causes DNA and chromosomal damage, and that it can pretty much, not only affect humans, but it, pretty much in my mind, it's affecting every living thing. Because it's going and targeting DNA and chromosomal damage. Not just DNA, but they have new ones that actually target RNA, which is another part of the blueprint of what we are and what's normal and what is, potentially cancer. So
Right.
they're pretty much saying, that we need to stop using this stuff immediately. Suspension, no spraying. Other big news is a couple of big news items this week. Get this: the cocaine. The big drug war. Monsanto has profited in a major way on the drug war, big time. Because over in Colombia, what are they using to kill all the coca plants?
Right.
They've been using Monsanto's products to kill all the coca plants, including Roundup glyphosate. Well, the Colombian government just announced that they will no longer be using any of these products to kill the coca plants. They are going to totally stop spraying any of that. And I loved a quote by one of the journalists over in Argentina, and he said, "The world's most used herbicide affects people's health." And that's the bottom line, is this is affecting our health, and we need to start accepting that we have new research. All this research that keeps coming out just keeps saying it. So the precautionary principle says, why are we still using this stuff?
Right.
Why are we risking it? And another big thing that happened this week, which I thought was huge. This is friggin' monumental, everybody. There is, I don't have the name of this store in front of me. It's like DIY, I think was the name of it, over in Germany. This is a multi-billion-dollar chain of stores in Germany. They do billions of dollars in sales. They have just announced that they will not allow one glyphosate-containing product on their shelf starting September of this year.
That's wonderful.
Woohoo! I told you, Monsanto. We're going to kick your butt.
There's a town in Maine, a small town in Maine, that has banned pesticide use.
Oh, I read about them. Oh, yeah, they immediately went to my hero list. I was like,
exactly. So, I mean, there are these small movements here, but as long as we here in the U.S. sell these things in our big box store, in any hardware, you can buy Roundup anywhere.
I know. And I actually, you know what I did, Kyla? I went down to my local Lowe's, and I asked to talk to the manager. And I said, first of all, FYI, we have all these new studies that say this Roundup, which you guys are pushing down people's throat by having pallets of it sitting there as they come in the door. And with all your friggin' commercials, making it look like everyone should be spraying it around their home, their pets, their children. Why are you not, since you're pushing all this Roundup, why can you, he's like, oh, well, we do offer organic choices. I said, oh, really? Well, you guys have these classes that you do on how to make, this project or that project. Why don't you guys start teaching classes on how to use those organic products and transition away from the friggin' Roundup and these other toxic products? He's like, oh, well, we have discussed that before. I guess we could discuss it again. I'm like, yeah. So I plan on going and bugging him about this until he does it.
There have been people here on the East Coast who have been picketing the Lowe's and the Home Depot stores
really?
to stop selling this stuff because
good for them. I didn't know
not
that.
only are they selling it, but the thing is that people don't. They're not. We're talking about a country where when you buy an iron, there's a warning label that says, "Warning: do not iron clothes when on your body." I mean, people don't always do the smartest thing when they get home. And I can only imagine how some people are using this Roundup, either overusing it or using it when their kids are playing. I was walking my dogs the other night in our neighborhood, and the lawn company had just left one of our neighbors' houses, and they had those little yellow flags all over saying, warning pesticides, warning pesticides. And their kids were outside playing on the lawn. Who does that?
Oh, gosh, the parents don't even know the risks, do they? They don't even understand the risk. And I just want to let everyone know that you're listening to KCAA 1050 AM, and we are here with Kyla Bennett, and she is from the Peer Group, which is out of Washington, D.C. She's been kind enough to call us, it's almost 8 o'clock her time, and I really appreciate you taking time out of your evening to do this, Kyla, and share all this information with us and have this discussion. Because, in my mind, when we're poisoning our citizens and we look at the rates of obesity, we look at the rates of cancer, we look at, heart disease, our number one killer, which is directly related to obesity. The rates just keep creeping up higher and higher and higher. And when I look at how people eat, as a dietitian, I am just going nuts. I always like to watch what's in people's carts when they're checking out at the grocery store.
Me too.
Isn't that just so curious to see what these people buy? I'm always thinking what are you going to go home and eat? But sometimes I will say something. I'll say when I see people with a healthy, something healthy, what are you going to do with that? I try to ask them how they're going to cook it or something like that. But, these choices that we're making at the grocery store, it's just, that's the point of purchase. First of all, not going to the fast food restaurant, taking control of your food, making sure half your plate is organic fruits or vegetables. Mostly vegetables is what I would hope for. And other plant-based foods, and of course, organic wherever you can. And, so many people think that they can't have organic, and I keep trying to tell them, yes, you can. I've been on welfare as a student, and I was going to the farmer's market and buying directly from the farmer, and you can save money and you can have these foods. And we have to start taking action as citizens. It seems like so many people are so complacent that think that they can't do anything, or they shouldn't be doing anything. The politicians will take care of it. But what kind of attitude should we be having? Because you're right there in Washington, D.C. You guys make things change. You're able to work with these whistleblowers, even, which I can't even imagine some of the emotion that some of them, go through. I was thinking about the job that you guys have to do. Not only are you dealing with, the enormity of these problems that they're bringing to you, that could be something on a wide scale being done on an industrial level. It's directly affecting people right then and there. So it's kind of emotional.
It's very emotional. And it's, as you pointed out in your introduction, being a whistleblower is not a glamorous place to be. It's emotionally very difficult. Sometimes I feel like my job is being part psychiatrist. And I have
that on my list here of notes that I wrote.
It's very, very difficult. And I used to work for the EPA. I worked for EPA for almost 10 years. And I was a whistleblower, which is how I met Pierre, how I met Jeff Rook. And
so you actually were a whistleblower yourself.
I was.
Wow.
I sued the EPA. And
you go, girl.
It's not a fun place to be.
I can imagine how I would be scared.
Clients, I hesitate to say all, but it's probably 99% of our clients don't want to be doing what they're doing, but they have no other choice. When you wake up in the morning and you can't look at yourself in the mirror because you've been asked or ordered to do something that violates your own morals and your principles, or violates the law or scientific fact, what do? I mean, you're really put between a rock and a hard place, particularly if you're the primary breadwinner. These people don't want to be whistleblowers. They don't get any joy from it. They end up being pariahs. They're doing it because they care. And it's really a very uncomfortable place to be.
I'm going to read to you from my notes here. I said, see your group as multi-talented in that you deal with the scientific/technical aspect of what is happening, but also the mental/emotional that comes with a person dealing with a situation that is scary and uncomfortable for them. They may even have a fear for their family's safety and not sure where to turn for help, as even police help is not help, but could make their life worse.
That's exactly right.
Those were just after I read something from you, just that vision just came to my mind, and I wrote it down of what your life would be like.
You hit the nail on the head. It's a very scary place to be, and you feel like there is no place to turn. And I know that government employees have, there's people joke about how they eat donuts and don't work, and they work 4 hours a day, or go to bars instead of work. People say horrible things about public employees, but the vast majority of them are doing these jobs because they care about the environment. For example, the people at EPA or the departments of environmental protection at the state levels, they care about the earth. They care about the health of people and children and animals and wildlife. They care about the habitat. And to have, to work for not great money all the time, and to be put in this position of going against everything that you believe in and that is right, is just devastating.
Well, I made some other notes that sometimes, many people can make the process bigger than it is to talk themselves out of doing anything, and they continue being miserable every day at work and even at home. So it these situations actually impact the entire family, and then it's a heavy responsibility, some involving secrets that involve hurting others, some may be put in a position where they feel directly responsible for causing others pain.
That's right, and a lot it's all consuming. It colors all aspects of your life. It affects your marriage, your relationship with your children, with your parents, with your friends. It's really a difficult place to be, and so I applaud our clients, the people who come forward with the information. For example, on the bee kills, the gentleman who gave me this information is doing so at great risk, because people will know where it came from, because he's one of a handful of people who has this information.
So what was it that he came and told you that it was the most upsetting to him?
I'm sorry?
When he came to you, what was the most upsetting to him?
It's funny. I talked to him this morning, and he told me that he was, for years I have been saying that these sprays have been hurting bees, and he didn't know it at first. He fought with me on it. He knew that there were problems with overuse, misuse. There were issues, but this morning he was like, you were right and I was wrong, and this is much worse than I thought. And he was. It's hard because he feels like he didn't do enough. He feels like he should have done more. That there's more we can do, but he's ready to fight now. Fight for what's right. But it throws your whole life into a tailspin.
Well, I think, what I always try to look for the silver lining. And one thing I could look at his particular situation is just the fact that we have someone that has seen it in a way where he was able to make a almost conclusive observation and conclusion that, with everything that I've seen in my professional position, this is harmful. And just to even have someone that can say that, and feel it 100% to be the truth, and have the experience to share on how they base that decision, I feel is kind of an invaluable asset, in that we can at least kind of go, okay, let's accept the truth now, and let's start healing. Let's start figuring out how we're going to change.
What's the solution? Where do we go from here to improve the situation? And, these days, I mean, look at what you're going through out in California with the drought. And, there's so many issues out there that some people feel like it's hopeless. Like, we've reached the point of no return, and that there's not much we can do. But my feeling is we have to keep trying. We have to keep fighting. And
I will never stop. I will never stop fighting.
Yeah, exactly. And there are many of us that feel that way. But you were talking earlier about the food choices people make, and I watched a couple of years ago. I've been a vegetarian since I was a little girl, and I've been vegan for 2 years now. And I recently started the forks over knives way of eating, very plant-based, nothing processed, no sugar, no added oil. I dropped 18 pounds without even trying. My blood pressure is low. I feel better than ever. And I'm thinking, if more people ate like this, not as strict as I am, but even just more like this, imagine the water we could save. Imagine the energy we could save. Imagine the pesticides that wouldn't get sprayed. And it's amazing.
And healthcare costs is what gets me, as a public health dietitian. These billions of dollars, the cost of diabetes, and it's on so many levels. It's loss of productivity, loss of life, loss of health. Diabetes, the number one reason for loss of limbs. And that's just diabetes. It's like, this is huge money that we could be spending on education.
Right.
and prevention programs,
Right.
and actually maybe fund some programs where we learn how to grow organic and do without pesticides and all this. And like you said, the universities, scientific institutions get big time money from the pesticide companies. And I learned this 35 years ago when I went to UC Davis meeting, and they were talking about how they got millions of dollars on how to more effectively spray pesticides and put liquid nitrogen into the ground. So that was an eye opener for me right then. I said, okay, now I get it. Now I see why, these companies are just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. And even just recently in Oregon, there's a big fight over there right now, and we've had Family Farm Coalition on our show. They passed a law to say no GMOs in their county. Biotech spent $1 million trying to prevent them from passing that law. They still passed it over 60%. Now they're having to sue. They're being said that, you can't allow this, so now they have to go to court, and they're trying to pass a law now that says that the response was, we're going to pass a law that says you can't pass any more of those laws that says no GMOs. So we're going to pass a law to make it so you can't pass any of those laws.
Wow.
I know. It's just, and this case of this, Roslyn Park, and just in California, they allowed themselves to spray pesticides anywhere, anytime, without anyone's permission. 79 of the most toxic pesticides that we have are allowed to be sprayed, and they can spray that on a farmer's organic field and contaminate it. And not even tell them.
Then the designation of organic goes away.
Exactly. And I said to him, I go, so, what are they trying to do? They want to contaminate that field. And he goes, well, they've been trying to make organic go away all kinds of other ways. So, this is like war to me. This is like big time war.
And it all comes down to money.
It does.
I mean, that's the reason these companies, they want us to buy the pesticides and spray them because they want to make money.
Yeah, and they want us to buy food with it on it. And
Right.
I tell everyone, don't wait for politicians and government. You take action, because the thing that hurts them the most is when you don't buy their product.
Right.
And I do just fine without Unilever, Kellogg's, General, any of those companies. They're not in my house. I live
Me
just
neither.
fine without, and I love it. I feel so good to know that I don't have one of their friggin' products and they don't have one of my dollars.
Right.
It's like, you don't get my dollars. I'm sorry. You use it against people, and I will not support you in that, because to me, that's not right. It's not right for me to give that money to those people, because they're going to go hurt people with it.
Exactly.
And so I feel good about it. And I wish that I could convince all these other people. Think about who you're giving your dollars to, because that's power. You work for those dollars. You worked hard for that. There's power in those dollars.
And history has shown that boycotting works.
It does. It does work, because you're keeping their sales, and that hurts them bad.
And if everybody bought organic, for example, and vegetables and fruits that don't have pesticides, there would be more competition, and the prices would go down, and the conventionally grown fruits and vegetables would become less and less.
That's so perfect. Thank you for saying that, Kyla, because we're now out of time, and that was like a great way to end the show, and that's exactly what we're all about here. Organic. Just buy organic, and then you're just saying, screw you, Monsanto, every time you buy something organic.
That's right.
I love that. Well, Kyla, I want to thank you for all the great work that you do personally, and that your group here, the Public Employees for Environmental Responsibility. I was trying to get that out fast. And you've been such a pleasure to have you as a guest today.
Thank you so much for having me, Elaine. I really appreciate it.
Well, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed our conversation so much.
Me too.
And everyone, please find us on social media at our Smart Health Talk website. We got lots of information, and please come back next Thursday at 4 o'clock right here on KCAA. Thanks a lot. Stay healthy. Buy organic. Bye.
Take a walk on the wild side.
You're on board KCAA's Inland Talk Express. KCAA, Loma Linda, 1050 AM, the station that leaves no listener behind.
I'm Tom Busby, CNBC Radio. Just in time for your Memorial Day barbecue, wholesale U.S. choice grade beef prices hitting an all-time high. That's because supplies are already low and supermarkets are stockpiling meat ahead of the long holiday weekend. There was a rally today on Wall Street following good news about jobless claims and lower inflation, enough to send the S&P to a new all-time closing high. Meantime, the Dow up 191 points, closer to its own record.